Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home. Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
Welcome to the Freebirth Society podcast. This is a radical space for women who are ready to celebrate their autonomous choices in birth, motherhood, and beyond. Together, we'll learn about wild birth through personal narrative, we'll explore the politics of birth, and we'll analyze everything that relates to our lives as women from a feminist perspective. Here's your host, Emily Saldea.
It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
Hello, women. It is with great excitement today that I open up this episode letting you all know that the Matriarch Rising tickets for this summer, over summer solstice 2024, are officially live and available to purchase by the public. So please go ahead and grab your ticket, grab your add-ons. Please know that we always sell out, so do not wait if you are one of the many women planning your year to come be in a women-only, women-exclusive space with us in the Blue Ridge Mountains on my very, very special land. Come. MatriarchRisingFestival.com. Can't wait to see who comes this year. It is our 4th year. It'll be the full moon on the summer solstice. You can check out the first wave of our lineup on the website and just, feeling so much excitement. Okay, so with that, I'm going to shift over to letting you know about Noelle. Noelle is my guest today. She is gorgeously brilliant and oh so bright, super inspiring. I had originally had her on to talk about nutrition, and to my sheer delight, I find out during the episode that Noelle actually free-birthed both of her children. She speaks about moving out of depletion and disease by learning to put herself first and, crazy idea, listen to her body, giving it what it needs. So by cultivating inner strength through nourishment and true health, Noelle learns how to fully trust her body and free births her babies, which are both born in their amniotic sacs, at home, in peace. We go over the radical shifts that take place when mothers move out of martyrdom and into centering themselves, what it looks like, and the harmony that can be cultivated in your relationships when you're grounded and calm. Sometimes it really is as simple as learning to eat breakfast. All right, enjoy. And don't forget, go over to matriarchrisingfestival.com and grab your tickets. All right, welcome to the show, Noelle.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm just totally delighted to find out something I didn't even know. I thought I was going to have you on to talk about nourishment and food and nose to tail nutrition and all of this, which of course we should get into. But I'm also discovering that you just so happen to have free birthed both your children.
Yes, yeah. It's funny because I didn't actually with my son, I didn't know anything about the Free Birth Society, and I didn't find out about it until like maybe mid-pregnancy with my second. Like I didn't know there was this entire giant community of women doing that, So that's an amazing discovery.
That's amazing. Well, and it really goes to show that free birth it's just available for anyone who wants it, and
Yes.
it's some of my favorite stories now of women who in their own ways, not with this platform, find out about it, because it really, in my opinion, like validates that it's within us and that it's a very like true rite of passage for us.
Yes, absolutely. Because I think that there's a lot of talk about free birth kind of becoming like trendy, which is interesting. It's like that's just
Let's
a choice
go.
of birth. Yeah, right. But I think that so many women are really drawn to the idea of birthing alone by themselves because it's just your innate ability to do that. And I think a lot of women come to that point when they are fully nourished. And especially for
Mm.
me, that's something that I discovered within myself.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Say more about that. And that can just go into your first birth.
Yeah, so my background is as a holistic nutritionist, specializing in Ayurvedic medicine. So I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner, as well as studying biological nutrition and physiology. So I've kind of tied all of these things together to create what I practice today. But prior to being a mom, I had a brick and mortar practice. Like I was
Mm.
seeing clients, and that's what I was doing. And now I just pretty much teach for free on my platform. And my husband and I have courses together. And then we have our beauty care and supplement line where we sell products. But primarily, I'm just sharing the information that I've learned all these years, to help women. And for me, the goal is to help women thrive in motherhood, thrive throughout their pregnancies and postpartum, and just be able to uh, grow healthy beings and be healthy themselves and be the container for their entire families. And
Mm-hmm.
that really does start with your mindset and your body and your nourishment around there. Um, and so for me, I was like already very much in the alternative space. Like I knew I was going to home birth when I was in like high school. I was like, I'm totally like, that's what I'm doing. But I didn't know I was going to free birth for sure. Even when I got pregnant with my son, that was something that I didn't know like was a thing. I had to actually like look up laws about whether or
Mm-hmm.
not, like, I didn't know that. I knew the physiology of birth, but I didn't know like, logistically, like, well, what did people do in that situation? So I did a little bit of research, and my husband and I met with one midwife when I was pregnant with my first, and she didn't know as much about physiology or the physiology of birth as we did. And I was like,
Stop it.
yeah. And we just kind of left the meeting, and I was like, I don't know what we're gonna do. Like, I don't want to hire her. Like, I don't want her present at my birth. Like, I think that things might go wrong if she's there. And um, we sat with that a little bit. And then I finally one day was just like, I just want to have the baby, like just me and you, like by ourselves. Like, can we just do that? And my husband was
Oh
like,
my
yeah, sure,
God.
like that's fine. And that's kind of how I like stepped into like free birthing, was really just out of the desire to have my birth just go as I wanted it to and not have anyone interfere with it.
So how
Um,
did you already know that truth?
well, so my health history is very extensive. And that's how I got into health in general, Ayurvedic medicine, and nutrition. Essentially, I was really sick when I was in high school. I was a teen, and I experienced a lot of medical malpractice. So I knew that I did not want to birth in the system. I didn't want to
Mm-mm.
be in the system, that my experience was not rare. And so for me, it
Yeah.
was like, like, I'm definitely not going to be a part of this. Like, that is terrifying to me. And I didn't want my children to be exposed to that. And that really got me on like this path to being more sovereign, like wanting us to like grow our own food and have a homestead and do things on our own, because I was afraid of the system. And now I've kind of like confronted that and come to terms with it, that I do see a place for modern medicine, but I don't personally, for me, see a place in birth for that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's pretty much how I came to the conclusion that I was going to home birth. And then the free birthing was just like, this is expensive to pay somebody just to stand there and do something. And I didn't feel like it was going to be worth it, in the long run. And then after experiencing my first free birth, like I was like, this is insane. Like I can't believe I even thought of doing it a different way,
Right.
and
So how did you contend with the classic, like, what if something goes wrong? And Do I really know enough as a first time mom to navigate, totally unfamiliar terrain? And,
Yes.
did you have a wild pregnancy? Did you not engage in the system at all with your first pregnancy?
So with my first pregnancy, I had one sonogram at 20 weeks, and I didn't have an OB or anything. I just had one. And then other than that, I didn't do anything else. But
And why did you?
I don't know why and at the time it was just like, I feel like I should maybe like see the baby, like
Hmm.
maybe I should, have this experience. And looking back on it, I probably wouldn't have done that. Like with my daughter, I didn't have like any sort of, I mean, I didn't do any testing with my son other than the one sonogram. I didn't have anything with her either. Um, and that was like a fully like wild pregnancy, I would say, because it was just a pregnancy test. Then let's trust that this is,
Right. See what happens.
see what happens, sort of thing. Um, but with my son, I did not tell anyone that I was going to free birth. I actually like lied to everyone. Once I figured that I was going to free birth, I was just like, yeah, we have a midwife. Like I'm
Hmm.
going to do a home birth. I mean, even my parents, I was just like, I have a midwife. Like, but they said that they knew that I was obviously not telling them something because I like didn't know the last name of the lady that, like I said, I hired. Like there are certain
You're
things,
not
and
a good liar.
yeah, I'm not a good liar. I was just like, yeah,
You're like,
it's
it's
like,
Jane Smith.
yeah, like you know. But I really just like I I tested the waters, like I tested it, and I when I said I was going to home birth, and when I was sharing that I was going to home birth, I just kind of felt out like, can people handle this idea of free birth right now? And I didn't feel like they could. And to me, it was like, this is my life. Like, this is my body, my baby, our family that we're creating. And it's my responsibility to protect us. And I just felt like I didn't owe anyone anything.
Hmm.
And they could have their questions, and I didn't need to answer. And I didn't. And I'm so, so happy that that's the way that it went, because I really kind of tucked into this like cocoon of bubbling, becoming a mother, and it paid off for us. I did protect us, and I was able to just have this completely sovereign, wild birth. And then afterwards be like, yeah, like I birthed them by myself, and everyone's like, what? Totally shocked by it. But then with my second, obviously everyone knew that I was going to free birth. Everyone knew
Okay.
that
So
like,
you
that
were
was
out
like,
about it with the
yeah.
second.
Yeah, so with my second, although I did have a lot of questions online, like, oh, are you going to free birth? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? And I didn't announce I was pregnant until I was like 7 months pregnant. Like I kind of
Nice.
waited a long
Hmm.
time because I just didn't want the questions. I didn't want all of this, pressure to be something when I really, your focus needs to be on growing the
Hmm.
human inside of you. But I did afterwards tell my birth story, and
Mm.
they're different. My births between my son and my daughter are very different in feeling. Um, but since everyone in my family knew I was going to do a free birth, and I already did with my son, it was it was a cool thing because I had support.
Hmm.
They like totally trusted in my ability, and that was a really good feeling, like being able to like let my parents in on the joy of like
Hmm.
the power inside of me and my body was really special.
Yeah, I see that trend a lot, that women who do choose it for their first will withhold that information, lie, cocoon, and then there's this almost like, unspoken, like now that they've proven
Yeah.
to society, to their families, to themselves, then there's this like permission to really own it in the second. That seems like a pretty understandable and common trajectory.
Yeah, it felt for me like the safest route to go.
Hmm.
I didn't want to spend like my energy teaching other people in my life, like why I was doing what I was doing. And because if they were interested in physiological birth, they would
Read a
just go
book.
out and read it
Yeah,
themselves, you know? So I
totally.
didn't feel like I needed to be responsible for that.
Mm-mm.
And even now, I don't, you know, when people are like, you do that? I'm like, that's crazy. I'm just like, yeah, well, I mean, you could read a book too, and you could probably do it if you wanted to.
Yeah. And like, is it as crazy as
Is
going
it
into
crazy? Yeah.
systems of abuse where your baby will be medically kidnapped and shot up against your awareness? And I mean, like, is it
Yeah.
crazy? Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more around, before you get into your first birth story. It's just so cool to meet women who decide this just fully within themselves. Like, I'm assuming that you didn't know anyone who had done this. You didn't really have like the language for it. It was just a very,
Yeah, I vividly remember the moment that I decided that that was like what we were gonna do. My husband and I were like sitting in the bath together, like facing each other. And I just was like, I know that like part of my purpose in life is to birth babies. Like I know my body, like this is what I'm made for. It just I had such a strong feeling, and I still do. Like, I want a huge family. I want to birth so many times. You know, it's just something that I feel, you know, it's like drinking water to me. Like I know that I need it. I know I need to do this. And I don't, maybe the feeling wouldn't have been as strong if my experience within the medical system wasn't so horrible.
totally.
Maybe it would have taken me a little bit to get to that point. But um just looking at birth for like what it is. And like I say this, and I know it makes people like, that's not true, but birthing is like pooping. It's like your body just does it. Like you don't need to do anything. It just does it. And because you know, I know the body, I was just fully confident that the I've got this, you know, like I don't need to interfere with anything. And
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're very
yeah.
correct. It is very similar to pooping. It
Yeah.
requires a very similar hormonal matrix to be intact to successfully go through both experiences. It's not as romantic, but
Yes.
it's quite similar. And yeah, I appreciate the clarity and confidence that's emerging out of your experience in your teens, and how closely related it is when we step into our own embodied health, right? And our own knowing that for many women comes from first being really betrayed by outsourcing, right, to the allopathic model or to whatever. And so in that embodiment of knowing ourselves and having clarity in the relationship with ourselves, it becomes really obvious. Like free birth becomes an extension of just what we know to be true about ourselves and our capacity and ability.
Yes, absolutely. It felt like the most natural decision to make.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember when I decided it, like such a weight just releasing from me. I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
yes, this is the right thing,
Hmm.
because I've now fully like dropped into the space that I need to be for birthing, you know. Before
Mm-hmm.
that, I felt like a little bit, I was like, oh, this woman's gonna be there. Like, who is this lady? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and of course there's other, and some people love to have midwives. And I just I'm not that way. Like even for my second birth, I was like, I need to be alone,
Mm-hmm.
alone. Like everyone just leave me be, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so it felt like it clicked as soon as I decided that. It felt such like, yeah, a primal instinct also like kicked in with me, where I felt like that was like my first decision as a new mom. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I was like, wow, I'm doing the right thing, you know?
I mean, I think you're really speaking to a very healed, intact, healed part of you that is truly able to source from your own internal resources. Because really, in a lot of ways, that is kind of how I would describe free birth, is the willingness, ability, and interest to, like you said, just have everyone leave me alone and just, drop in, do what you need to do. And I want to be careful here because there's nothing wrong with not wanting to do that. It's fine. I don't care. Like, you should birth however you should birth with wherever you're at. It's not a hierarchy, but it is a different state of consciousness. There is a state of consciousness that you either exist in or choose to step into when you choose to source entirely from within yourself and within your family, your marriage, and it is different when you choose to hire authority in birth, a professional. It's not less than, it's not any of that. And people really cannot hear me when I say that.
Yeah.
Even though I really sincerely mean it, it's just a different paradigm. It's a different
Yes.
consciousness.
Yeah. It's such a different feeling. And for me on my own healing journey, that was like, oh, it was like an explosion inside of me. It really showed me all the work that I had been doing, um,
Mm-hmm.
and like how well it sort of paid off because I was able to be in that space and make that decision and then go through it. Like my body was just fully nourished doing all of it. And it has only set me up for such an empowered motherhood since then. It really changed me in a huge way where I went from even the little parts of me that maybe weren't so healed and maybe I was like a little insecure about, it just mended all of that because I realized like actually I'm much greater than this. Like I I was selling myself short and like I just did this, I just kept repeating that, like, I just did this, and I think that it is the most empowering feeling ever. And it's healing on so many levels. It's just an incredible way to heal too. And it does come from a place of, nourishing your body and nourishing your mind and feeling like centered in yourself and believing in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of women, that I speak to that don't choose the path of free birth, which is completely fine. I think that they're maybe not there yet too, within themselves and reaching that state of awareness in their
Mm-hmm.
body and connectedness to their body. But I do believe everyone can be there.
Of course.
And, there's so many facets and ways you can get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So if you feel ready to tell us about your first free
Yeah.
birth
So,
story, go for it.
so my husband and I were living in a little rental home at the time. The bathtub was super tiny. I did not have a birthing tub, but I knew I wanted to like be in the water. I really should have planned better because the tub probably would have been super nice.
Mm.
But I started going into labor around 11 a.m. Um, and my contractions were really mild. Like I would say that equal to like period cramps I had like in high school that were like bad. And I just started puttering like around the house and getting things together. We did like a lotus um, birth with a placenta. So I had like that kit all set up and the bed set up. And I pretty much went throughout the day, which now I know was like active labor. I didn't have my water never broke. Um, my son and my daughter actually were born in the sac.
Mm.
So I've never experienced water
That's
breaking.
cool.
It's a very interesting thing to have two
That's
babies and
funny.
not know what
Yeah.
that feels like. Um, so it was basically into the evening time where my contractions were getting to the point where like I really needed to center and breathe through them. So we filled up the bathtub. Um, and I pretty much like labored in the tub, like on my knees, on my back a little bit, like trying to find a comfortable position. Um, and my active, like really strong active labor was only 30 minutes. before. Yeah, I had a very short birth
Whoa.
with my first. Yeah, so um, and I was really able to just breathe through every contraction, and we were pretty much in silence the whole time.
Awesome.
My husband really just kind of held the space for me, like trying to figure out, like, okay, do you want me here? Do you want me to do this? And then at one point I was like, I just need to like squat, like in like this tub is not big enough for my body, like what I need to do. So I was like squatting kind of my legs in the tub, my butt on the side of the tub. Um, and that's when I felt down and I could feel the sac. And I told him, I was like, you need to catch him because I need to relax my body right now. I was like, he is coming. Like this next contraction he's going to be coming. And I just felt like the ring of fire that everyone talks about, and this wave of heat flow through my body, and he just floated through the water like in his sack, and my husband just caught him. Yeah, it was like just a very
Whoa, what a
very
cool story.
yeah,
So
and
did you have to did the sack pop in the water or did you
it
have
popped
to
in the water. Yeah, so it popped when like my husband like put his hands on it. So then it
Mhm.
popped, and he brought
Hmm.
him out of the water, and then I turned around and I sat down and he placed him on me. And it was I wrote this card to my son for his first birthday about his birth, and
Hmm.
it was such a wild thing because like our lives had just changed like insanely, but like nothing, there was nothing around, like it was silence. It was just us in this space. Like no one knew that
Mhm.
anything happened, and that's such a different experience. Like usually there's commotion and like noise
Mhm.
and all this stuff, and we were just completely peace and silence. It was really, really beautiful. And then we just like started our lives as our family. My placenta came right out after that. Um, I showered off and we went into bed, and then it was like postpartum period. It was just so
Wow.
uneventful. It was just like, oh, I just went to the bathroom and had a baby. And it's funny because my husband would joke about that prior to my giving birth, and you'd be like, I just feel like one day you're gonna come out and be like, the baby's here, and like
Mhm.
show me.
You also had a lot of willingness, whether conscious or not, to let it be simple, right? Even in choosing free birth. I mean, women still will do their damnedest to dramatize a free birth if that's what they're committed to.
Yes.
But when you're really committed to simple and you're really worked out of how to have that, of course,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's funny because I'll see people who have like the tub and the candles and the music, and I'm like, that is awesome. Like
Production.
I want that. And then when I'm in it, it's like I don't have any of that.
Hmm.
For
Yeah.
me, it was like, you know, the cleanup of the birth was everything was in the tub, went down the drain. It's like
Amazing. Yeah,
we had
that's
like,
very chill. Well,
yeah, it
also you
was
had a
super
quick
chill.
birth, which
Yes,
is amazing. Like when you have a long birth, you're going to use every inch of your home just to shake it up,
yes,
you know?
yes. And with my daughter, it was different. My birth was actually still like my active labor was still, it was 2 hours, which is still very short in like
Hmm.
the scheme of birthing.
Sure.
But sort of the same atmosphere in terms of the birth. I birthed in our home, in a similar sized tub actually, which I did that this time. I was like, I'm gonna get a tub, and then I did not. But I mostly just
For
like
that third baby.
I'm totally getting a tub though. But I mostly just labored in there in the shower with the hot water. But my contractions were, I was roaring through them. Like to bring her earthside was way more challenging for me than with my son. My son is just like, he's there, and you know, it was easy. But I feel that with my daughter, I, as a woman and becoming a mother to a woman, I really had to face a lot of myself, and those contractions were part of that. Like
Mm-hmm.
I watched my life, like I watched my relationships, like as I roared through those contractions. And
Yeah.
um I watched my relationship with my mother. Like inside, like spoke to her and released, any resistance there too. And yeah, my husband was like, this is different. Like,
Mm.
and I was like, you need to leave because I cannot not like scream right now. Like this, I need to scream and I need to be alone because this baby is coming out differently. Like this
Mm.
is not the same sort of feeling at all. And I really did roar through all of those contractions. And I ended up getting out of the tub and sitting on the toilet. And he came in. My husband was like outside playing with my son. So I pretty much labored by myself. And he came in, he's like, you don't birth on the toilet. Did you clean the toilet? And I was like, yes, I did clean the toilet. I was like, I'm
Also,
also not
shut
gonna,
up.
I know. I was like, I'm also not gonna birth her. Yeah. I was like, please be quiet now.
You know how many babies are born into the toilet?
I know.
So many.
I was like, Shh, no.
Yeah. And so then did you, or did you shift
No,
off?
so I felt down and I felt the sac again. And I was like, I guess like my water's just never gonna break. I'm just gonna have babies in sacs. So I got off the toilet and I was on my knees and yeah, she came right out into my arms and no one was in the room. It was just me. Yeah. And then because my husband went outside to go back
Mm-hmm.
to my son was playing in the front yard and and then he was coming back and forth to check on me,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as soon as he went out the door, she came earthside and then he came back in like a minute later and he heard the cry and I was sitting there with her in my hands and I just looked him in the eye and I was like, I did it by myself. Like to me, catching her was like really like by myself. Like no one was in there. It
Mm-hmm.
was just me and her. And that was the most oh my gosh, the most incredible feeling of my entire life. And like, I can't wait to tell her how
Mm-hmm.
she entered the world and how it was just like me and her,
Mm-hmm.
and just that connection. And it's interesting because my son has such an affinity for my husband. Like he is such a papa's boy. And I do think it makes a difference, like who catches the baby in that
You think?
moment. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's just my experience,
Well,
but
then what is
probably
it?
like,
What does it mean for my baby that just fell on the floor? no, one, no one caught
no.
him.
I mean, yeah. Maybe it's not anything.
Well, we like, we're humans. We love stories. We love to,
Yes.
my mentor says we're meaning makers.
Yes,
We
right.
love to make meaning and it's so fun.
Right.
Like, why
Yeah.
not? You know?
Yeah.
So, okay. So I just want to visualize this for a second. So she's coming out, you said in the call again. And so,
Yeah.
um, you're on your hands and knees. And then do you just like kick back to get her from the front?
Yeah, I caught her from the front. And so I sort of like pushed back and I was like
Cool.
still like I was like on my heels, and they were
Mm-hmm.
out. And as she was coming out, I like burst the sack with
Yeah.
my hands by grabbing her.
Mm-hmm.
Um and yeah, and then as soon as my husband came in and he saw her, like my placenta just like fell out. Like it was
Nice.
so fast. I was like, whoa, that was because with my son, I kind of like push, just fell right out. He had the bowl and everything ready and he's like, okay. And then my son came in within a couple seconds and he was like, oh, I want to give that little baby my dump truck. Like he was so,
Cute.
so sweet.
Came in
And
with gifts.
yeah, and then I was like a little bit cold. So we got into the hot bathtub and then my son got into it with me and then he held
Mm.
her for the first time. And we run our business. We have like our workshop on our property. And my husband, like we got back, we got in the bed, everything was like pretty much set up and my son was with me and then had my daughter. He's like, yeah, I have to go back to the workshop. I have to like put some orders out. I was like, okay. And that was like my first moment of like
Oh my God.
being
I
like a
would
mom.
let my husband leave me alone with my children for like 3 months.
Oh, really? No, no, no.
I
Nick
might
is
be
just like,
exaggerating.
you know,
So,
yeah. And then
so he was
it
like,
was
I
just the
have to
three
go
of us.
work at like what, an hour postpartum?
Yeah, about like probably
He
like
probably
30,
just needed
30
to like,
minutes.
he just needed to like, just take a minute,
You
probably.
know, it's funny because when I hear him talk about me to other people and talk about birthing and stuff, he has such like a wonderful view of me. And he's just like, Noelle just does that stuff. Like she's just capable of it, you know? And I
Yeah.
was joking with a friend. I was like, yeah, he just left me after I had my babies. And he's like, no, I didn't. I just knew that you were fine and you had it. Like you were okay. And he's right though, because that is my personality and that is like my capability. Like I'm very much like I'm good. Like I don't, you know, I'm fully when I need support, I really like speak it and say it, you know. And then for the next basically 2 months, I stayed in bed and that so
And amazing.
so, you know, that was I did the same with my son too, but you know, it's different when you have
Mm-hmm.
another child to like care for.
It's way harder.
Um, yeah, just totally different. So we had my
You
mom.
actually need to commit. I mean, I say need, like women should do whatever they want, but it's not, it is because it's more challenging. I think the idea is to commit to that restful postpartum even more. Like first baby, you're young, it's
Yeah,
fine. Third baby, fourth baby, fifth baby, like we're talking about the health of your pelvic floor for when you're 50, 60, 70, you know, with every postpartum, what we do and how we allow it to, yeah,
yeah,
repair, recover.
absolutely. And I think probably for my next birth and postpartum, I will hire like a postpartum doula. My mother stayed with us, but I think she would need more help, like, and because I
Mhm.
need someone to care for me while she cares for my children, you know, and I do think women really need a lot of support postpartum. It's not just oh, okay, you stop bleeding, you're good. You know, like that's
And it
not
feels
the
good.
case.
It
Oh yeah,
feels so, I mean, is there a deeper nourishment than having a network of your family and community fill all the little holes in your household that you don't have to fill? It just feels so good.
absolutely. And I I just I know what a difference it makes because, you know, at 4 months postpartum, like my energy was just back to where I was before. Like my body, I mean, it just nourishing my body and doing it correctly and resting and like truly not pushing myself and just allowing my body to heal was just such a gift. And now at 8 months postpartum, I'm like, I'm ready for another baby. Let's go. You know, like
Totally.
my body is just feeling so good. And I don't feel that exhaustion that so many women go through. And
Hmm.
when I hear stories, which I do every day, it's it's painful. It's painful
Hmm.
to think of that. I feel for women who go through a traumatic birth and then a traumatic postpartum. It's just it's
Domino.
oh man,
I
yeah.
mean,
And
the birth in the system is set up to create trauma at every step, right?
yes.
So when what we see in the free birth world is what I would call the biological design, that women emerge from their births wanting more kids,
Yeah.
right? Feeling good. Um, there's definitely a relationship between how well supported they are in their postpartum to how their mental health is, you know, at 3, 4, 5, 6 months
Yeah.
postpartum. Of course. So I'd like to shift into nourishment and your work and what you teach about and how this all interplays with motherhood. Um, like I could prompt you with stuff, but I also feel like you could kind of just
Yeah.
riff.
Yeah. Um, you know, I always remind my community that a fully nourished mother is a fully nourished family. What you do for yourself trickles down into your family. So you truly do need to, you know, fill your cup, take care of your
Hmm.
body. Um, this culture around moms just eating scraps from their children's plates and not truly slowing down to actually feed themselves is not serving anyone. And I'm basically the counter of that. For me, I, you know, I teach about physiology. I teach about Ayurvedic medicine, the practices of Eastern medicine, and how you can apply it to your more modern day life. And my primary focus is on women doing nourishing activity. It absolutely has a trickling down effect. When a mother skips breakfast and her stress hormones are incredibly high, her mood is going to be unstable. That's going to affect her children, her reactivity to her children, her ability to handle upsets throughout the day with household upsets, whether it's, something just not going as planned or your child needing more from you. The basis of everything I teach is really this holistic, and I say whole, like, everything combined, view of the body and your mind and your lifestyle, and how you need to weave this nourishment throughout all of it, nourishing activities, a nourishing routine, nourishing foods. And that looks a lot like slowing down and being aware and purposeful with your choices. We're in a culture where women just rush through everything. I need to rush through this. I need to rush through that and that and that and that. And it's just depleting. It's straining on the nervous system. It's depleting to our mineral stores, which we give to our children anyways. We lose 10% of our mineral stores with every birth. So if you think about that, your thyroid and your minerals are the spark plugs to your entire metabolic system. If you are completely strained on your mineral stores, your life is going to be strained. Your mind is not going to work correctly. You're not going to be sharp. You're not going to be able to handle basic everyday things, like my son wanting to go ride his bike, and whatever the case may be, I could easily respond in a reactive manner, or I can help him, and I can be centered, and I can be the teacher that he needs me to be. And it really comes down to how we treat ourselves, and how we treat ourselves is also an example for our children. I
Right.
grew up with my mom eating Tostitos and drinking Diet Coke and like skipping meals like crazy. I
So you don't do that?
yeah. Yeah. I really modeled my idea of health from my dad, actually. But that's because I was on this similar routine as him. Like waking with the sun was always I naturally just really enjoyed that.
Mm.
And he was very into health. He was an athlete, and he, when I was in high school, he had like his oatmeal in the morning and his green tea and his lemon water. Like he was doing a lot of things that today, everyone does for their health. And so I had a really good example in that way. But I did watch how my mom's diet affected her mentally and emotionally, and her ability to handle us and our problems, and really support us. And now she's come a very long way from that, and eats
Mm.
and completely nourishes her body. And interestingly enough, it's something that we talk about often, because now with my children, if my son is like, I don't feel like eating breakfast, my mom is able to communicate, hey, actually, I did that for a very long time, and these are all the things that happened to me, and I this is how I feel when I eat breakfast, and don't you want to play and do all these things?
Cute.
And yeah.
So what does nourishment look like to you and for you?
For me, it's nutrient dense foods. So, not consuming empty calories, whether it be from like health foods or not. I think there's uh, this idea that to be healthy, you must like drink green juices and eat salads and have quinoa and, whatever you have, have a raw diet, all these different things. And I look at food for its nutrient density, its quality, and its bioavailability for the human body. So for me, I'm composing my meals around what does my body need? How can I nourish my body more? Am I lacking fat? Am I lacking protein? Am I lacking carbohydrates? Where do I need to make this plate more well-rounded that it's going to suit me and then serve my family? What kind of micronutrients is my body missing? Is it copper? Is it iron? I'm looking at all of those different things. And that's really why I teach a lot about nutrition, a lot about what's in food, like what's in an individual type
Right.
of
Because we don't
food.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. And like how your body actually uses that, what it's for. Because it really does make a difference when you start to educate yourself about that information. You can easily make a decision on like what to eat. Food is not just like, oh, I'm just going to eat because I have to eat. You eat to really have a purpose for your body. It's going to add to your life. And of course, there's wiggle room there. You can have your donut if you want your donut. And there's ways to have foods like that. Like I eat sweets all the time. I'm always making brownies and cookies and sourdough things. And I do think that there's also room for that. But the idea is to set the foundation with those nutrient dense foods that your body could actually use. So often women cut calories. That's another thing that I stress so much is like, you cannot survive on 1,500 calories. I don't care who you are. It's not possible. You can't, not as a woman who's birthed a child. That is
without a
not
great
enough.
cost.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, yeah, you might be still standing, but
Right. But
how are you feeling? How are
Yeah.
you doing? How are your relationships going? How are you sleeping? How are you pooping? How's all that going for you? It really does affect you. And women really do need upwards of 2,000 calories of nutrient dense foods a day in order to have sustained energy, in order to have a high functioning metabolic system and a relaxed nervous system. And I don't think people will often connect the dots between like what they've eaten during the day and like how they are like feeling and reacting, even in their own thoughts. Like, oh, I'm being very reactive right now. That is strange. What did I?
The other day I interviewed Jessica Ash, and she said something that really, I mean, it's sad. It made me laugh though, because it's so interesting. But she was like, those women that will be on restrictive diets and they're like always irritated and they're just like in like a low level state of rage. And she was like, they're starving.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
oh shit. I never really, because I know women like that. I never really considered that like they're famished.
Yes. I mean, if you think about it, like if you sit down to like a good warm meal that's like salted properly and you get like, all the fat and the protein, the carbs, like all in one meal, like how that grounds your body, like how stable do you feel? Like you could, you can continue on with your day. It's just, it's so, so, so important to nourish your body, to put all of that first, especially in your birthing and mother years. Like I do not know how women make it off of scraps. I could not, I could not function. I'd be a reactive mess.
Right.
For
Well,
sure.
a lot of people are. Yeah. I mean, this goes back to what we were saying earlier around if we learn how to source from within, then we can begin the internal discovery process and internal dialogue of what feels good, what might I want? Because so many of us, and I totally relate to this, just like want to be told, like, just give me what you eat, give me how you work out, tell me exactly what you do. And I would really prefer to just put that framework on my life, but it's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's not a sustainable, option. There isn't any shortcuts with birth, with mothering, with health, that it's really, are we willing to learn because it does take time, especially if you're 35 and you haven't learned how to internally source your own approval, your own sense of security, your own sense of safety, like some really basic shit that most
Yeah.
people haven't consciously, skillfully learned how to generate yet. So it'll take some
Yes.
time, but are you willing to discover what food feels good? And do we even know, like, so many women will be like, what even does that mean? Like, what even is nourishment? Because we're so fucked up from fad diet culture and restrictive eating and don't have grains and everything
Yes.
is bad. And this idea of, raw milk and fresh sourdough and, lots of meat and dairy and all of this stuff that, we're like indoctrinated to, as little girls, think that stuff is like gonna make us fat.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
It's
crazy.
yeah, there's a whole I mean, that is basically everything I experienced growing up was
Mm-hmm.
don't eat any of those foods. And now
Don't
I
eat,
eat.
actually. Just don't
Yeah,
eat.
it's just like just try not to eat and then like continue to live though, but don't eat,
Don't eat, but also smile.
Yeah, like to just smile too though.
Yeah.
Yes. I know. I really attempt to share inspiration for meals and foods, but I stress so much that, you know, although our physiology is the same in that way that we need these things, we're predisposed to different imbalances, different diseases in the body. We live in different environments and have different lifestyles and interests. And so you really have to take that information
Right.
and apply it to yourself. So it's not as easy as like, just tell me what to eat, but I can't. I can't tell you what to eat because I don't know you and you need to know you. So you need
Right.
to take responsibility and apply this information to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think uh I don't think it's taught enough and early enough that these things are important. My husband and I were chatting last night about how most women don't even know how their cycles work. They don't even know their different phases of their cycles, um, and how that affects, their family, their relationships, like the decisions that they're making and the food that
Mm-hmm.
they need to eat. And this should be like basic knowledge that we're teaching our kids. Men and women need to know this, because then we can actually like live in harmony. We can function together. People are often surprised at like how well my husband and I communicate and like have our relationship and this and that. And I'm like, well, we're fed, so there's that. But we also know how to respond to each other and what's going on in our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And
Because
I
you're
think,
literate. You're actually
yes,
literate. And when two people are literate and they like each other, the
yes,
potential of that is
yeah.
really exciting.
Yes, it's really exciting. And that's my goal and my hope is to show women, well, one,
Mm-hmm.
you can do it because I did it and I didn't come from a place of this. Like I created this,
Mm-hmm.
I came from all sorts of health
Tostitos.
ailments.
Yeah.
Yeah. I came from a place of, when I was 12, I had a kidney disorder. I was homeschooled part-time, not by choice, but by force because I couldn't physically go to school. I had Hashimoto's and PCOS, and
Oh my
I
God.
had cancer, and I had all these different things that before I was 21,
Oh my God.
and for me, when I decided to go to school for Ayurvedic medicine, I just had turned 18. I was the youngest person in my school. No one was like interested at my age. And during that time, now it's definitely like become like a bigger thing, which is really cool. But I just knew that this is not like living. I'm not going to live if this is how life is going to go, and I wish there was somebody out there that was like telling me all the information I know now.
Mm-hmm.
So I could have, bypassed a lot of hurt and a lot of
Seriously.
stress. So that's my hope for women, is that they see what life can be like if you do these things for yourself, if you lay that foundation out, if you put some time and energy into learning about your body and then applying that knowledge to your life, and then how well you can really show up in motherhood, and how well you can birth if you want to, free birth, and how well your stable your marriage can be too,
Right.
and all these things, like it really affects the whole cosmo of your entire life, your
Hmm.
the how well your body is functioning.
There's a lot of, psychological and cultural, stuff to this outside of food too. That's just like most of us, I feel like, I could be wrong, but from what I have tracked, most of us grew up with really that martyr mom persona, that's very Christian, very serve everyone except you,
Yes.
mom's last. But there's also
Yes.
this like heroicism to it, and it's
Yeah.
very there's pride within the martyr persona that just isn't interesting to me at all as the center of my family and as the yeah, like the center of my family. I
Yes.
don't understand it, and I feel so just amazed that I could learn myself out of these things that were shown, not just from my maternal line, but also society, right?
Yeah.
And I think there is something happening that I see paired very much with the free birth world, where women are starting to really realize that it's like pretty cool to love yourself and to like take care of yourself and to eat and to say no. And these like
Yeah.
things that feel real basic, but like you said, like get fed. Like let's start with just like eat, see who
Yeah.
you are when you're genuinely fed, when you know that that is happening. Because Jessica Ash was saying this too, that you'll be a completely different person if you are
Yes.
currently malnourished without even realizing it. Who you will be nourished and the caliber of your life, the consciousness you will exist in, is going to be so different. And I look at women that I know who are nourished in all the ways, and there's such a radiance and a creativity and this kind of like infinite capacity thing happening where we're just scaling and scaling and scaling and holding and holding and holding. But it's really radical to do it from a state of fullness and wellness versus depletion and martyrdom.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. And it really does start with just making the decision to be like, hey, you know what? I need to eat this meal right now for me. And if I don't, no one is going to be served, and
No one
just
eats until
until I
I
eat. Um, for me, I came from prior to pregnancy and prior to motherhood, like a very nourished state. I've been doing this work for a very long time, but becoming a mother, you're faced with a lot more challenges. You give up
Mhm.
so much of your self-determination. It is the most selfless job in the entire world. And it was an interesting thing for me to kind of navigate without becoming a martyr,
Mhm.
and truly like living the work that was preaching. And there are so many moments where I'm still nursing my son. He's almost 3.5. So there are moments where we've explained to him, like, no, mama needs to eat right now. She can't nurse right now because in order to make the milk, I need to eat my food. So I need to finish my dinner, and it needs to be calm because this is going to affect my digestion, which is going to affect the way that I absorb my food and my nervous system. And if I'm stressed, then I'm going to have stressed hormones in my milk, and then your tummy's going to hurt. We really go into like the physiology for my son. So he's like totally aware of, hey, you know what? Actually, I need to care about my parents, because if I don't care about my parents and their time and their space and their energy, they're not going to be able to care for me. And now at 3.5, like he's just so understanding of all the things that we have
Mm.
like said to him and taught him, like, over the past couple of years.
So screaming, it's not all about you. It's not the tactic that I will often default to.
Yeah.
So you've got an 8-month-old, 3.5-year-old. You want all the babies. You have a cow. You just moved to this cool new big property.
Yeah.
You're crushing it.
We've got some sheep. We've got dogs. My dog just had puppies. We've got
Oh,
ducks
fun.
and chickens. Yeah. We're trying to really, our original goal is like, let's live off grid. And maybe that will be for us when our children are a little bit older. But something we realized at our previous home, which we were like a little bit more removed from society there, is that our children need communication, they need people, they need life. And we need to figure out a way that we can still like remain in our values and work towards our goals while they're able to socialize and meet people. And so yeah, that's been the place where we've been at, and kind of our the whole reason for moving and leaving where we were, that we loved so much. But yeah, it's whenever my mom would come to visit me, she's like, "Whoa, you do so much in a day." I'm like, "Yeah, well, it's insane what you can get done when like you're you ate breakfast and you didn't live off of black coffee all day."
Oh, that is so funny and so true.
Yeah, there's
Amazing.
a huge culture online of just like, let's starve ourselves and then let's drink wine later. And
And then let's see who we are at 50.
Yeah, no, I'm a very grounded and calm person because of the choices that I've
Of course.
made in terms of choosing myself, essentially choosing to nourish my body, because I can see how that can affect everyone else. And I hope more women do begin to see the value in that. I know that there's a lot of discomfort that comes with nourishing your body, because if you have been starving, and there's many reasons why you may have been doing that, your body's going to look different. Your body's going to look different when you start to nourish it. It's going to look different through that transition. Yeah. And that's kind of somewhat hard to go through, but when your body starts to balance out, and then you're at a state where like it's fully just working, your organs are doing what they're supposed to be doing, it feels so different. Getting past that uncomfortability is so worth it.
Beautiful. So in closing, what is your, like, how can women find you, and what is your work online? You mentioned you have courses, and what are your other offerings that women can engage in?
Yeah, so my husband and I, we created a couple of online courses. We have a digestion course, a weight loss course, which is really just more or less a trail off of our thyroid course, which is what I would recommend for most women who are prepping for pregnancy. Maybe if they're pregnant, like that's because your thyroid is, the center of essentially your entire health system. It's really important to work on that. And then we have our beauty care products. We have some facial care things, and then metabolic supplements. So that part of our line has expanded quite a bit. Cool. And our company is called Forever Healthy LLC, and that you can find us on Instagram or on the web. And then my page is Noelle Kovary on Instagram. And so I just share free information every day. I have thousands and thousands of free content in my highlights, like hours worth. Like you could make a couple of courses out of that. And I always tell people, like, there's so many topics in there, and it is the most in-depth information you'll probably read.
Beautiful.
So it's all right there on my page. And that's pretty much what we're offering now. We are working on a pregnancy and postpartum course, but because of the season of life that we're in, it's probably going to take us a while. So that'll be announced later on when I get to it.
Beautiful. Awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to put you on the spot and say we would love to have you come to MRF if it's in your flow and you're only a couple hours away. So
yes, I really had wanted to make it this past year, but being like, for me, like 6 months postpartum is still like, I'm like still in like the thick of it and everything. But I would love to come for next year. We'll be very close by, and it would be wonderful to also bring my kids.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
get to meet so many like-minded women.
Yes, yeah. And I loved finding your space because after I free birth, I was like, okay, am I the only one that's doing this? Like, because I also would really like to talk to
Totally.
people about this,
Yeah.
and finding that there's just such a massive shift happening. Like, I've been able to connect with a lot of women online because of your page,
So
and just
cool.
like finding people that like resonate with me. And I think that that's just amazing, and we need that. Women need that, especially when we're shifting in such a dramatic way, like to shift from this
Mhm.
more allopathic medical system to this sovereign way of living and birthing and mothering. It's like you need your people.
Exactly. And I mean, that really is at the heart of the Matriarch Rising Festival, is it's
Yeah.
like, it's all these women who in their own, maybe they have communities, but maybe they don't. And they're all coming together under these shared values of free birth and sovereign living and health and nourishment. And it is really like women just kind of walk around like, whoa, like it's like a conscious women's summer camp.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
That's
Okay,
awesome.
well, thank you so much for your time. It was super fun to get to
Yeah,
connect with
thank you
you.
so much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed the show today. You can support this podcast by donating to it on freebirthsociety.com and leaving an awesome review on whatever platform you listen on. The more reviews, the more visibility the show gets, so let's spread the word of sovereign birth. We've always got a lot going on at Free Birth Society, and you can find out about all of it at freebirthsociety.com, at Free Birth Society on Instagram, and opt in to my newsletter below in the show notes. We offer courses on free birth, authentic midwifery, and the blood mysteries, as well as one-on-one coaching, in-person retreats, and of course, our annual Women's Festival. Our exclusive, vetted, private membership is definitely something to check out if you're looking for a community of wise sisters. Together we rise. We must speak our stories, claim our lives, and support one another. This is the living revolution, and I am so grateful to be in it with all of you. I'll leave you with our epic Free Birth Society theme song, Wild Woman by Aruba Red.
I honor you for the wisdom you held, the ancient traditions of plant medicine and womb magic. I feel the spirit of the ancestors as I place my hands upon my belly. This sacred portal will be honored. Eons upon light beams of survival, withstanding the eradication of our power by design. I will not allow the separation of our young to be forced upon me. My sisters will no longer birth in captivity. The picket line redefined from burning our wild women to paralyzing us and drugging our babes. Strapped down in a clinical white bed, drying up the milk from our breasts. Keep your needles. My family will never again be doomed to chase those dragons or your poison. We reject your fear. We choose love. Everything with intention. Death, ascension. I will fly and bring her back from the stars.